Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and another video. Before we get too deep into this video, I just wanted to thank Lee Billingham Art for giving me a shout out this week. It was so nice, and the words that were said were just so nice and inspiring, and I very much appreciate it, and I appreciate all the new followers that have come over to my channel, so I thought I would shout him out as well. He does a lot of portrait stuff, some manga, and a lot of Halloween stuff, which is something that we both have in common. We both, I think a lot of creative people really like Halloween and October. So if you guys have not checked him out yet, I will leave a link to that video in the comment or in the video description so you guys can check that out. So today we are going to be doing a watercolor versus Inktense piece. I'm working in my sketchbook, and I have the tutorial for this Jaws sketchbook cover, and I will leave that, or I will have a card pop up here and you guys can check that out. Okay, so as I said, we are going to be doing a watercolor versus Inktense kind of experiment in this watercolor Strathmore sketchbook. And can I just say that I absolutely love the sketchbook, by the way. It is so perfect for experimenting with watercolor or any type of wet media. So I am super excited to have this video out for you guys today. The purpose of it and why I wanted to kind of compare the two was for the purpose of choosing which medium I'm going to be using as a background on my next piece. So I have the line work all done for it, and I wasn't sure exactly how to tackle it yet. So I just wanted to kind of do a watercolor versus Inktense to see which medium I think would actually look best as the background for this upcoming piece. So as you can see, I'm using the Inktense blocks and my watercolor Winsor & Newton Cotman set. It's just the set with 12 colors in it. I have my Princeton brush, and then I will be using a Simply Simmons brush as well. These two are by far my favorite brushes so far, and I absolutely love working with them. Now, I have done an Inktense review in two parts, and I will have a card pop up here so you guys can check that out if you're not familiar with what Inktense is and how it works. I will kind of sum it up really quickly so we can compare and contrast the two. So obviously the Winsor & Newton watercolor Cotman set is a student grade set, so it's not going to be as pigmented as the professional watercolor sets that they have. And then we have the Inktense, which are usually very, very saturated and highly pigmented. For the purpose of this video though, I did decide to really water them down, just to see, because as I said, this is kind of an experiment for the background of the next piece that I want to work on, and I don't obviously want the focal point to go towards the background, so I was very curious to see if I could use Inktense the way that I use watercolor and really kind of tone down those colors to see which one I think would actually work better in the piece. So I will have an example pop up here of this flamingo, and you can see how saturated and vibrant Inktense are. And for this experiment, I really, and I mean really, watered them down way more than I usually do when I work with Inktense. Okay, so as I said, I'm using the Winsor & Newton Cotman set of the little watercolors that are on your screen right now, and I'm kind of mixing the colors that I want the background to be, and just kind of messing with that so I don't have to keep going back and mixing a ton of colors while I'm trying to work on this. And then so these are not as pigmented as the professional watercolors, which is fine. And then we have Inktense, which is actually water-soluble ink. It's not watercolor, though a lot of people usually confuse that as such. And I actually wanted to kind of see if I could use them like I use watercolor with this experiment. So the big difference between the two is that you can reactivate watercolor to some extent, but once an Inktense layer has dried, it does not move. It's exactly where you put it. And like I said, I've done a review on Inktense and I had a card pop up. I'll have it pop up again. So if you're curious as to about what Inktense is or how it works and anything like that, go ahead and check out that video and then come back to this one. Okay, so moving on to actually what I'm trying to do here with this little side-by-side comparison. As you can see, I have Watercolor on one side and then Inktense on the other. And my goal is to kind of make like these two galaxy or starry night skies with very muted colors. And in the next video, you'll see what this background is for. But I wanted to see which one that I would like better and wouldn't take away from the focal point of my next piece. And then, you know, also to kind of warm up. Like, I haven't really done a big piece in a minute, and I just kind of wanted to get my hands working and get into the painting mindset again. So I figured this would be a good little exercise to kind of do. And as you can see, I pulled out some of my Daniel Smith dot cards as well. And I have to say, the more that I use these dot cards, the more excited I get about wanting to buy Daniel Smith tube paints. I am just so impressed with just the dot cards alone that I'm so excited to get some actual tubes of those. So the Daniel Smith are more pigmented than the Winsor & Newton, and I think that's why I pulled them out. Just, you know, to kind of get the piece to look the way that I wanted it to. I also had to pull out the dot cards partly because I don't have any black in my set, which I think is really weird. Like, I don't understand why you would have a white watercolor pan in your little 12 set when you should have black instead, because white is basically obsolete in the little 12 pan set. Like, I mean, you can change some of the colors with it, and I did actually use the white and the blue on one of my mermaid pieces, but it was just, you know, inconvenient to not have a black, and I had a really hard time making a nice black. It ended up looking more kind of like a dark muddy brown. So I did have to pull out my Daniel Smith dot cards to get some black, and I will definitely be using a tube of black paint when I do get that. So hopefully that's not against watercolor rules, because I like black and I don't understand why certain people have problems with people using black, especially because I glaze different colors in with the black. So I don't see it as a problem. I don't see white as a problem. I don't see any colors as a problem, to be honest with you. I mean, they're colors, they're meant to be used, so I don't see how anybody can really penalize you for using a color that exists for an obvious reason. So anyway, so that was the watercolor side, and now I am using the Inktense blocks and trying to make like an ink wash with them, and I am really, really watering these down, you guys. Like I said, this is not going to be anywhere near as pigmented as I'm used to working with when it comes to Inktense. As you saw on the flamingo, how bright and vibrant that was. I'm trying to see how toned down I can actually get them. And you can actually get a really nice variety of colors and shades, and you know, if a red is too bright, you can always add its complementary color to kind of tone it down, and that's actually what I ended up doing. I have to say that I was a little disappointed with how the Inktense side came out. It dried really light the first time around, which I was not expecting, because they're usually very vibrant and saturated. So that was a little bit of a surprise for me, and I also was kind of a little disappointed. It like came out a lot smoother than I expected it to. It wasn't very watery looking like the other side. So, you know, it seemed to be more of a smooth finish versus a watercolor finish, which is fine. I mean, Inktense is not watercolor, but I wanted to see what I could push them to do. And so my goal for this background experiment is to actually kind of have like a blurry, out of focus look without it, you know what I mean? Like, I want it to be pretty, but I don't want it to take away from my focal point in my next piece. So I just really wanted to see which one of these mediums would actually work better in the long run. You know, it's funny. Another thing that I found really odd is that I expected the Inktense washes to behave like regular ink washes, and regular ink washes kind of work similar to watercolor when you dab in like a splotch of ink onto regular water, like it spreads and feathers, and though it looked like that wet on the Inktense side, it dried very, very smooth and flat, which was really weird. I was not expecting it. It's not a bad thing. It's just it wasn't what I was planning on it to do. So it was a little bit harder to work with on that side. So I do think, based on looks alone and ease of use, that I am going to end up going with watercolor for my background. But I also think I'm actually going to use both of them together. I think I'm actually going to be using the Inktense black pencil for a couple parts. But yeah, see right here, you can see how light it dried, which was very odd. It didn't, it normally doesn't dry that light when I use Inktense. So I must have really watered these down. And though I did add so much water, I wasn't, do you see how smooth it is though? It just looks so smooth. Like, it was so weird. Like, it didn't have any kind of water texture to it at all, which I thought was kind of odd. But I am having a little bit of trouble kind of deciding which one I want to go with. But I think that I am going to end up choosing the watercolor with the gouache as the stars instead of the Inktense. But I do plan on using the Inktense pencils for some of the parts, and then hopefully finishing the piece off with colored pencil and gold ink. And now I'm going to be coming in with the white gouache for the lighter parts of the galaxy stars area. And I have to say, I think the gouache behaved really weird with the Inktense as well. It just, I mean, they're obviously, gouache isn't meant to go with Inktense, but you know, this is an experiment, and I'm glad I did it in my little sketchbook here, partly because I wasn't sure what it was going to do, and I'm glad I didn't actually go ahead and do this on my final piece, because in all honesty, I was going to go with Inktense at first. So I am glad that I decided to do this and compare the two, because I think I would have been really let down had I went the other way for my original plan. So yeah, this is basically, I like the way that it kind of marbles on the watercolor side. So I do think I'm going to end up going with that. And obviously the gouache takes to it a little bit better. And I have no other way to go about doing the white galaxy part that I'm familiar with anyway. I'm not sure if regular white ink would work with Inktense, so at this point I was a little surprised. But anyway, which side is your favorite, watercolor or the Inktense side? Let me know in the comments below. I hope you guys are having a wonderful weekend. I wish you guys a very, very Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And please make sure you guys go over to Lee Billingham's channel and check out his stuff. Give him a sub. He's a great person, and he's awesome in the art community, and he deserves all the followers he can get. And I will see you guys in the next video.